Yo guys, it's Mike from Chess Lifestyle, and actually I need to adjust this timer, make it 45 minutes, because we can only train 45 minutes today because I still need to pack. The good news is that I've finished literally everything else on my to-do list, so all I need to do is stream, and then pack, and then Prague tomorrow. So it'll be Prague, and then it'll be Dortmund straight after, no time to rest. So yeah, we're going to get into today's training. And what I actually wanted to do was, I wanted to take a look at another chapter of Argaard's Excelling at Chess Calculation. We almost finished chapter 2. I mean, we could finish it for completion's sake, but I think we got the gist and understood this concept of candidate ideas. So I wanted to take a look at this. When is the right time to calculate? Because I think this is actually going to be something very practically useful going into these tournaments, because, I mean, you know, even though it's classical, I need to be able to reserve energy. I need to be able to manage my time well. So it's going to be important that I make the right decisions when it comes to knowing when to calculate. And I think there's actually a strong player that actually made the point that knowing when to calculate is almost as important as actually your calculation ability. And I seem to remember actually a friend of mine who's actually started his summer tournament today. Actually, I need to check in with him how he got on. He's actually playing in a closed tournament. I mean, he's a bit stronger than me. He's like close to 2200, and he's playing in a closed tournament for like an IM norm. So really hype for him. But actually, he was the one who told me that probably on average, you only calculate like 1 in 3 moves. Like 1 in 3 moves, you need to calculate. The other 2 moves basically are kind of like, you know, you're playing moves based on like logic and understanding of the position. So you don't need to calculate every move. So this is kind of like my understanding going into this. And of course, I have read this chapter many years ago, but I've like forgotten everything probably. So yeah, I thought it's good to refresh our memory and go through this. Welcome, Frizz, to the stream. We're going to be taking a look at Argaard's chapter 3 of Excelling at Chess Calculation. When is the right time to calculate? So, Mark Doretsky, do not calculate complicated lines before you are absolutely sure it is necessary. Calculation is only one part of chess, and although central and crucial for a player's development, it is not the only skill that needs to be acquired. Just as important are understanding of positional factors and a good technique, but both require the support of calculation. We can outplay our opponents positionally and then fail to win again and again because we do not sense a critical moment, the moment when we have to change our frame of mind from logical and conceptual thinking to actual calculation. Yeah, I need to hear that. I need to hear that for sure. In a standard chess game, the 2 players start by repeating a few opening moves from a textbook, database, or prior knowledge. At some point, one of the players will part from theory and have to think for himself. This is the first critical moment in the game, and a good place to invest a lot of time. In the game below, we can see how moves 9 and 10 were fairly obvious for white, and move 11 he spent a lot of time finding a way to organize his forces, prepare for the middle game. If black had invested the same time on move 9, he would perhaps have played differently and the game would have been a more even fight. As it was, he remarked after the game that he did not think it was possible to get such a bad position after 15 moves. The point was that he did not solve the problems the opening presented to him, but white did, and later white was able to benefit from this. This is from the game below. Is he talking about this Argaard Ostergaard? Maybe we can have a quick look at this. So Argaard is white and Ostergaard is black. Jen said that after the game that he suddenly got the impulse to try something new. I can understand, but the Scandinavian defense? Ooh, the burn. Yeah, 1 in 3 moves to calculate is interesting, yeah. I mean, this is coming from a player who basically would calculate all the time. This was his strongest suit, and he kind of realized for himself that actually it was kind of inefficient. And yeah, by changing this, among many other things, of course, he kind of broke this 2000 barrier and reached like close to 2200. And I think he's on the rise. Like, we'll see how far he gets. Yeah, ED5, knight f6, d4, knight d5, knight f3. G6, bishop e2, g7, castle c4, knight b6, and c6. This move is actually not as bad as I initially thought when Jens played it, but black should utilize its advantages creatively. Theory recommends knight c6, d5, knight e5, takes. I mean, this theory is probably outdated, to be honest. But yeah. h3 here. With his last move, black defended for f3, b7 diagonal, and after bishop g4 would be attacking both c4 and d4. Therefore, h3 is natural reaction. Now comes the first critical moment of the game. What should black play here? And instead, black just goes for knight d7. A specious move, a badly placed piece is en route to the more active square f6, as black slowly, oh my god, it's a long text. As black slowly completes its development. But in fact, knight d7 is more or less a decisive mistake. The knight has no real function on f6. The only plan available is connected to bishop f5 and knight e4 in order to relieve some pressure through exchanges. But white can easily prevent this and does so in the game. Instead, it was necessary to find real work for the black pieces and not just let the fingers do the talking. Black needed to perform a correct evaluation of the position, and the discovery of white's plan, though not so easy to predict, this was a task black had put before himself by choosing a passive formation like c6. Right, so in this position, in fact, maybe we can try and work this out ourselves. What is white's plan in this position, and therefore how should we play? Scandinavian is your beloved response to e4. I remember, for instance, when I was younger, playing in junior tournaments, there was this one French kid. Wouldn't it be crazy if you were the French kid? That would be crazy, because he's several years younger than me. Probably he would also be a similar age to you now. But I don't think you experienced any junior chess in the UK. But yeah, he was French. And I remember his rating was always like quite a few points lower than me. But we played twice and I lost both games. And both games were against a blasted Scandinavian. And it was so annoying. Like he would play like both bishop g4 and bishop b4, just pin my knights. I'd have huge pressure on my center and I lost both games. And I was just so mad. He was like some small French kid with glasses. And he's probably a really strong player now, to be honest. Like, he was a really good player back in the day. Also, let me fix this. I don't know why. That's looking a bit clapped. Let's fix that. Just put me in the middle. Yeah. But yeah, no, Scandinavian caused me some problems. But yeah, thankfully I don't have to play this garbage 1e4 anymore. But yeah. So let's try and think of the plan for white. What is the right plan here? A plan so devastating that this knight d7, knight f6, bishop f5, knight e4 kind of simple plan is just no good. So my first instinct in the position without thinking about anything is that maybe white wants to like break with d5. Like that could be like a plan, but it also feels like the pawn is actually somewhat weak. Like maybe that's not a good plan at all. Maybe one idea as well is this a4, a5 to try and displace the knight. But let's say a4, black can meet it with a5. And actually in this instance, there's pawns on c4 and a4. And that kind of gives up control of the b4 square. In fairness though, that's maybe why we'd want to keep the knight on b8. So we could play knight a6, knight b4, right? So for the record, there was some guy who commented on one of my videos being like, draw more arrows. So okay, I'll try and draw more arrows. So if a4, a5, this basically allows this square for the knight. But this square in comparison, oh my god, is controlled by our c6 pawn. I have a feeling, guys, I actually won't be able to draw arrows because I think my computer is already struggling as it is with both Chessbase and Streamlabs. So no more arrows, they're going to be too laggy. But yeah, so I don't know about this a4. a4 can be met with a5. I feel happy about a5. So what is the plan? See, to be honest, I prefer this position for black. This is a very kind of Gergenitzer kind of vibe to the position. I don't like how white has to play some big dynamic break to justify the position. At least that's how I understand it. I think white probably wants to put the bishop on f4 actually. Bishop f4, maybe even drop back to h2. Just control that diagonal. That looks super annoying. Maybe later establish a knight on e5. But yeah, definitely I'd start with bishop f4. So maybe in this position you already need to play like queen c7. But I wonder if that stops bishop f4 completely. Like maybe it can't be played immediately, but after queen c7 there could be ideas of knight e5, bishop f4. But maybe knight e5, immediately we just go bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes. And okay, we give up our amazing dark squared bishop, but we win a pawn. Potentially that could be possible. Don't know if I'm happy to play that though, to be honest. I would not like that position to be a pawn up where board is open, they've got bishop pair, and they have that dark squared bishop. Like, goddamn, like I'd be losing this game probably. So I don't know. To be honest, I'm not really happy with both sides. Not really feeling it. Maybe I'd play bishop e6 here, because I mean that hits the c4 pawn if they played b3. Maybe now I can play h6, kind of secure my bishop on e6, and then I can develop the knight to d7. And actually, to be honest, I feel like the knight doesn't belong on f6, but it belongs on d7, because in this Caro-Kann like position, you kind of want to prevent this knight e5, and you prevent it with knight d7. So maybe that would be my plan. Bishop e6. He has to spend a move and then play h6. I also prevent d5, even though I'm not 100% sure if d5 is even a good move. But I feel like bishop e6 is somewhat more harmonious with the development. Probably as black, again taking a leaf out of Caro-Kann, I would probably want to be playing for this b5 break. Either to isolate their pawn, or if they push, then they get a backwards pawn. So this b5 break looks like something maybe I'd want to try and engineer, but it looks really tough to get in as well. But yeah, I don't see White's plan. Maybe it's like b3 or something, and they want to put the bishop on a3, b3, bishop a3, rook c1 or something like this. That seems reasonable to me. But yeah, White has to be careful with his b3 push as well, that the knight on c3 isn't hanging. Like maybe there could be some c5 move, pawn takes c5, takes on c3 kind of business. So, and that hits the rook as well, right? So White definitely needs to be careful. Yeah, so that's kind of my understanding. Let's see what you guys have to say. Wasn't me. I have glasses. So it could have been you. Maybe it's your doppelganger. Yeah, Scandinavian so great to throw the opponent out of fury, especially with queen d6. I have a story about this queen d6 move. I have a friend called Maxim, and in the Hastings, one of the Hastings side events, he was up against an opponent, the 1700, who exclusively played this queen d6 Scandi, and he prepped the life out of her. He prepped like so deep into this queen d6, it was basically winning from prep. It was unbelievable. He just won the game and walked out, and like, yeah, I think the girl was pretty upset. But yeah, that's what happens when you play like an opening that can be really badly prepped against. I think White's plan is to exchange dark square bishop. Okay, so that's actually a good point. Like, maybe we should talk about this position in terms of exchanges. I guess like I did have it in mind. I just kind of had this feeling that, yeah, black wants to exchange any piece except for the dark square bishop. So maybe that makes sense why you might want to exchange it for white. But yeah, for me, like, as long as black can exchange a piece, then they'll be feeling better. And I thought in my head white wants to keep every piece on the board. That was my feeling. I like bishop e3, queen d2, or b3, bishop b2, something like that. Yeah. Bishop e6 is a nice move, I feel. Welcome to Space Lee, welcome FAC. Why do you play c3? Why do I play c3? I mean, there's a whole... Probably the best thing I can point you towards, because, okay, it would probably take me 10 minutes to go through all the reason, and you probably still wouldn't be convinced. But the best thing to do is on Chessable, there's a forum, general forum, and I made a really funny post that was like, did Chessable seriously release a course on 1c3? And there you can read my full answer to why I play c3, but also the discourse between all the skeptics and my answers and rebuttal to them. I think it's a really, really thorough forum post, and you'll answer probably every question that could be asked about 1c3 will have been asked there and will have been answered there. So if you have any doubts, you're welcome to check that out. I'm trying to think, is there somewhere you can find the post easily? Probably it's fairly recent. I don't think you'd have to scroll far to find it. So, okay, if you've got the work commitment to work through a course like my 1C3 Venom, then you easily have the work commitment to, take 5 seconds and have a look. So, okay, should be fine. Also, before I delve into this any further, I saw suspiciously you messaged on the Discord server. You messaged on the main chess chat. I didn't have time to respond to everyone. Like I've been really busy and I still need to pack. But I'll just say that it's natural to have these kind of runs of like doing well and then doing badly and then doing well. It's like you can't always be on this upward trajectory forever. Otherwise, you'll make it to world champion, right? So it's natural to have ebbs and flows in your kind of like performance. And also, yeah, a lot of external factors can be a cause of it. You said like, your tactics were going bad and now your rapid's going bad. Is there a reason why the tactics started to go bad in the first place? Are there some external pressures? But yeah, also like, what was I going to say? Yeah, you made this one comment at the end. Oh yeah, you said how like, yeah, even from a week ago, you feel like you can't calculate in the same way. I have been there. I've been there so often. I've even been there mid-tournament, right? Like, to stay consistently strong over 9 rounds is really, really difficult. So yeah, consistency is a huge part of chess, and that's why you get some players who, you've got some players, and you look at their FIDE graphs. They've been up at like 2300 and then dropping down to 1900 and then going all the way back up. And actually, if Stephen Willie is lurking on the stream, he was actually one of these players who just comes to mind most recently, who basically has now hit FM, but he had dropped below 2000, right? This gap between below 2000 and FM is huge, absolutely huge. So, consistency is a huge issue for players, and it's one of the most difficult things to master. And I would say for me, what has led to me being more consistent recently is just kind of consistent training. Like, I've been doing a lot of this woodpecker method. Okay, today I'm doing something slightly different just because I felt like this might be useful as a word of advice from Argard before my tournaments. But, yeah, like, I think consistent training then leads to more consistent play. That's my general feeling. But, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I've got 18 rounds of chess starting in 2 days. So that's gonna be wild. So we'll see how my consistency goes. But that's my advice to you. So basically, if you can gather something from that. I'd say the plan for white would be to exchange Dutch square bishop, expand on the queen side. Right, I was looking at ways to expand on the queen side. I didn't see an optimal way of doing it. So further those white pawns march forward, I have a feeling that black has chances to liquidate it. And maybe somehow white's queen side will get like under pressure due to my dark square bishop on g7. Like it feels difficult. I have better prep. 99% of the time I get -1, -2 position with queen d6 after 10 moves. That's wild. Is queen d6 Scandi your main weapon, Frizz? Because if so, that's crazy. Currently on Chess Grid. Can't seem to find tactics as well. Yeah. Yeah, so I answered this question before you even made the comment. Felix, welcome Felix to the stream. Felix, are you someone I know in person? Because I know some Felixes, but I don't know their surnames, so it's possible. But yeah, just tune in. What's the topic? We are taking a look at chapter 3 of Argard's old book, Excelling at Chess Calculation, which is when to calculate in chess. So basically, this first part of the chapter, Argard has basically stated that when you come out of your prep, this is kind of like the first point where you should really have a deep dive and try and understand the position and calculate some lines, which clearly this player with the black pieces failed to do. Work and life has been super busy lately, so I haven't had much time. Okay, well that basically, says a lot, right? Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's already like a big giveaway, right? Like, if you're not training something, of course, then, your performance is going to be slightly lower. Proper rest is an essential aspect to being sharp, and meditation, even though it can be strange, is truly a great way to focus and relax. Yeah, meditation is a really cool one. I actually do some mantra meditation. I haven't for a while, but whenever I do it, my day is always brighter. Like I really like this mantra meditation where you're actually saying like, a repeated phrase over and over and over and over. Because as much as it looks like, you're in some like cult religion or something, and it looks like, you know, you're indoctrinating yourself almost. The fact is, when you make this sentence over and over and over, and especially if it's in a different language that you don't really understand, it can really, really help give your mind the space to actually relax. Because whenever you just meditate and you're not actually doing something active, so I like to do mantra, and I also like to carry the beats, like the meditation beats, to track how long you've been going for, because you basically have like one starting beat and you can finish at that starting beat, so you kind of know when you've done like 20 minutes of meditation, because you get all the way round to the start, right? So I have the beats, I have the mantra, and it's really, really nice because it's just enough distraction with the chanting to actually allow you to have a really free flow of thought, because you start to like daydream because you're focusing on this mantra and the beads, but you're daydreaming, you're not actually thinking. And I feel like in your day-to-day life, you think too much and you don't really get a break. Like, okay, you get a bit of a break when you sleep, but even when you sleep, you can have very, very restless sleep. And I found that sometimes with this mantra meditation, after 20 minutes, you feel like you've had like 8 hours sleep. Like, it's really refreshing. It's really refreshing. And you're almost a bit exhausted from like the amount of talking you have to do. But by the end of it, you're just really, really, your headspace is so much better. And you just feel energized because you've rested. You've properly rested. And I found that the mantra meditation is the way to go for me. It's too long of a story to get into now, but basically it was third year of university when I dabbled in this stuff and met some very influential people in this kind of sphere. And yeah, this was really, really good. So I need to do it more, basically. But in a way, like, I feel like, you know, I'm not in a place in my life where I really need this, like, you know, rest and headspace. Like, I feel like life is pretty good as it is, so it's like not so necessary to have the rest. Like, I feel pretty well rested. That's kind of my point. Anyway, main weapon against e4 is this queen d6 Scandi. That's wild. That also explains why probably like your blitz is also going well, aside from like the strong tactical calculation, but also like, yeah, whenever you have this kind of like niche repertoire that's also very tactically strong, this can really win you a lot of games. So this is nice as well. But there will be a limit. You're gonna reach like a point on either chess.com or Lichess where basically you're just gonna be getting hit by the main line every single time, and it's gonna be pain. So I hope you still got some way to go before you get there, Frizz. But yeah, it will happen eventually. Welcome, Josh, to the stream. We're having a look at this R-guard calculation, and we're basically trying to understand what is the right plan here for white and black. So now we've had to think about it, let's have a look. The correct move is bishop e6. Well, hey, let's go. So definitely, I mean, like, my feeling for these kind of like Gergenitsa style positions is almost a Gergenitsa, right? Like, I have a really good feeling for it. So yeah. b3, and then are we going to see the c5? Yeah, we're going to see the c5 move exploiting this diagonal. Knight c6, wow, and we enter some complications. Rook c1, bishop d5, oh, this is a mess. Jesus Christ. White is better here as the bishops and pawns are more than enough for the exchange. Of course, black has other choices, but white seems to be able to prove an opening advantage. Fair enough. Queen b3, a5, a4. Yeah, and this is what I was talking about as well. Like, the knight is actually more useful coming to a6 and potentially exploiting this b4 square. So yeah, I really understood the position for black. I just didn't really understand what the plan was for white. And I feel like actually these moves following bishop e6, this is very playing on black's terms. It's not exactly playing on white's terms. But maybe we'll see actually what are white's terms after this inaccurate move. So bishop f4. Hey, I got it. This was literally what I was saying, right? I was saying that maybe it was worth trying to control this diagonal. But in fact, like bishop e6, you know, this doesn't address this concern. It's kind of just doing black's plans, right? We're putting pressure on c4. We're developing the piece. Yeah, very interesting. But yeah, glad to see that I've got a good feeling for this kind of position. And knight f6. So bishop f4, the natural pose for the bishop in any case, and while it might look as if the bishop is shooting into squares, into thin air, it actually has some important prophylactic functions. The black queen has only 2 available squares, c7, d7, none on the 6th. White can severely disturb black's development by not allowing the queen access to these 2 squares. The bishop takes control over c7, as well as preventing the only active possibility behind knight 8 d7, which is e5, right? This e5 push. The knight can always jump to e5 later and disturb the queen, so black has no easy way to develop the pieces, as the queen will always be in the way of the rooks. Right, so what he's saying is that even if you move the knight out of the way and you play queen d7, knight e5 is possible. Yeah. So this is the first critical moment for white in the game. He has 3 pieces yet to be developed. It is natural to think that white will play queen d2, rook a d1, rook f1, bishop f1, when his pieces are in harmony and has more space. But although this gives white a slight edge, there is nowhere particular to go afterwards. White could play bishop h6 in exchange for the right set of bishops, but black's no real weaknesses. So yeah, this is all what Frizz was saying. It was really, really good. Instead, what I did was to approach the position prophylactically, as Mark Dvoretsky has advised in all of his books and told me to do on every occasion we have met. So I started to look for black's plans and found 2. The first involves bishop f5 and knight e4. The knight is a bit stupid on f6 and the bishop has no good square either. The exchange of knights on c3 would give some breathing room and maybe indicate bishop f5 to bishop e4, which white cannot really allow as the pawn on d4 would come under attack. Right, so as soon as this knight moves, the bishop is going to be revealed on this, and yeah, I guess with bishop f5, knight e4, knight takes, bishop takes, you take the bishop and you win the pawn, right? This is kind of what he's saying. So my first thought was to play rook e1, in order to meet bishop f5 with the desirable bishop f1, to basically control this e4 square. Not a great plan, but at least something that develops my pieces as well as preventing knight e4. Nevertheless, I was not filled with a feeling of ease by this. It seemed that I was not exploiting the full potential of my position, but rather making a specious operation on my own. Firstly, can I just note that this position, you see how this is like a typical e4 position where, you've done everything right, but it's so easy to go wrong if you're not a strong player. You can see how, carefully Argard is treating this position, because if you don't treat it well, black can easily equalize and even get a slightly better position. And lots of e4 players just go into memorizing some theory and they think that, oh yeah, I'm an e4 player, I'm gonna win as a result of this, and they don't appreciate how difficult this actually is. So to me, I find the job of finding a plan for black to fight back much easier than having to find white's best plan, which is actually to find black's best plan and prophylactically prevent it. Right, so this is one layer more difficult, and I mean this is the road you need to take if you want to be the objectively super ambitious player, but it's definitely not for everyone, I would say. So then he goes with black has a different plan. After rook e1, bishop e6 is possible, b3, a5, a4. I have more space and some problems persist for black, but he has forced me to fix my queenside pawns and therefore lose flexibility. I did not like that much either. I evaluated the position after h6 to be better for white, but besides completing my development, I did not see how to improve my position, so perhaps white's advantage not so large after all, right? This is kind of my fear with this position with white, I don't know how to continue. Am I really better? Is black able to strike me? And all of this space advantage is actually for nothing. So what I needed was a way to combat both bishop e6 and bishop f5. I quickly came up with the move after knight f6, bishop d3. Now after bishop e6, queen e2, avoiding playing b3, but after queen c8, rook a d1, bishop f5, black succeeds in getting rid of his most troublesome piece, find potentially best piece, and at the same time solves some of the problems with his queen. Note that after queen e7, bishop d3, rook d3, queen f5, white suddenly has 3 unprotected pieces, and all of them are threatened, so it appears there is no way to prevent bishop e6. However, this is not the point of prophylaxis. The point is to ensure that the opponent's every desirable option comes at a high cost. So I started to go through my shortlist of positional factors to check when in doubt about my future operations. One of these factors is weaknesses. My weakness is obviously c4, black's potential weaknesses are e7, and to my surprise, b7. After the light squared bishop moves away, b7 is not so easy to guard, and so the move played in the game entered my mind with strong sense of clarity, and I decided quickly upon it. a4. It was great to surprise my opponent that his position after a4 is close to being strategically lost, but to me it felt logical. He had played a passive opening setup and wasted 2 moves on an operation of cosmetic character. Beyond the aesthetic nature of the knight move to f6, there is nothing, no function of the move, no nothing. As I wrote earlier, some people may say that the move you think first is the one you play in 75% of cases, which may be true, but how many of these moves are theoretical moves through captures, exchanges, or mistakes? Chess is a game with great potential for depth, both in calculation and strategic thinking. The solution to this position was a move that white at first thought black wanted to provoke, but actually it turns out to be the other way around. Neither intuition nor calculation can help much in solving such a problem. The longest variation was 4 moves long, and hardly... Okay, you know what? I need to make a note of something because I need one of my students to read this book. Like, can I just make a little note? Like, how amazing this book is, right? Like, this book is so undervalued in the chess community because simply everyone just flocks towards the Grandmaster Preparation series, which is completely, like, not what most people need. Most people need to read this. Most people are buying this Grandmaster Preparation series because it's the more modern one and the one that got all the popularity. And simply the Grandmaster Prep book is basically a bunch of training exercises for people preparing to be Grandmaster. This is like, it's too difficult for me. Like, so many people buy this series and it's just such a waste. And if they only bothered to actually, you know, do their research before just chucking like £100 on like chess, like, this is the book to get, right? Excelling at Chess Calculation by Argard. Very old book. You know, some of it is not exactly engine sound. Doesn't matter. But yeah, one of my students needs to read this book. Because I think if he reads this, then he's going to make the next jump. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna keep reading before I address the comments because I want to get like to a conclusion of this. But yeah. So yeah, neither intuition nor calculation can help much in solving such a problem. The longest variation was 4 moves long and hardly anything more than an illustration of why white was moving in the wrong direction. With this kind of positional thinking, a strong player can outplay a weaker player virtually every time. Unfortunately for me, it is seldom that I can muster that kind of concentration and clarity. But if we go through the games of great players, we'll find this depth of thought all the time if we look for it. Especially if we go through the games of Capablanca, Aliakin, Laska, and all the other old guys, who are clearly better than their opponents. So when they found a strong plan, the opponents usually did not see them and hence did not prevent them. Awesome. And I mean, I think this is actually where like I was excelling at chess for some time in my chess. Nowadays I just make it even simpler for me so I have less chance of going wrong. But I did have some really nice games where I managed to find a plan that my opponent didn't, and excel because of this. So I definitely think Argard's got some point with this. Incidentally, in case it seems that the first move that came into my head was the right one, I should add the fact that it was not so. I did not waste time with Queen d2, so after Bishop f5, black is more or less okay, even though white has Queen e3, preventing this knight f6, knight e4. Very interesting. So after a4, why on earth is black not playing a5? To me, a5 would be the move that you want to play here. Is this even given in the notes or not? Ah, it is. Okay, it's immediately given. I was scrolling down too far for it. So if a5, the problem is rook e1, bishop f5, bishop f1. White will continue with queen b3 and rook a d1. It is not easy to see how black will continue. My teammate Michael Johansson noticed that bishop e3 with the idea of d5 was also possible, but I would not try to capitalize on my opponent's problems in such a fashion. Not because I'm a nice guy, but because I do not see how he can improve his position. When I have the chance to improve my position more than my opponent has the chance to improve his, I'd rather complete my mobilization and only then strike. We shall return to this interesting idea on move 16. And this last sentence is exactly what Dorfman preaches, right? Dorfman is saying, if you have a static advantage, do not play dynamically, i.e. d5, until your position is improved statically to the max, which is exactly what Argard is saying. So Dorfman strikes again. So yeah, very interesting to see. I mean, for me, I'm playing at the level where I feel like my opponents won't be able to, prevent my plans to the extent where I can't fight back, and therefore I'm actually preferring these kind of like retaliation openings and this is definitely more my style. But yeah. Let's have a look. So if bishop f5 immediately, perhaps this is the strongest continuation, but then white can go for this plan of a5. And okay, knight d7 is met by g4, and I guess the bishop is running out of squares. So knight e5, or even a6 with a very large positional advantage in both cases. Nevertheless, white is forced to undertake active operations because he has finished his development, and black should therefore have more chances of survival. Actually, this is why I've come to the conclusion that although I was enormously proud about my decisions in the game, and had the feeling that I penetrated to the heart of the problem completely, this was not in fact the case. I was so close and yet so far. That's crazy, right? What an amazing like conclusion from Argard. Like, to me, I would be like patting myself on the back, being like, yo, Michael, you legend, you understood all of this, you played so prophylactically, you found this a4, you realized that a5 didn't work, and saw all of this, and yet Argard is concluding that he was so close yet so far. That is like, I mean, that is the kind of humility from a grandmaster that you need. That's crazy. So the correct move order, in fact, was not to play this a4, but in fact it was to play the move rook e1. Let's have a look. So rook e1 here, bishop e6, queen b3, followed by a4, and white is strategically winning beyond any doubt. There's nothing to regret about a4, 11a4, as white still has a clear advantage. But the absolutely prophylactic rook e1 would not have allowed even a feeble try for counterplay with bishop f5. I must say that I am unsure about whether anybody except a true chess genius on a good day could solve this problem in all its details at the board. Sometimes true depth is only possible through long and hard analysis repeated many times. But honestly, who would refuse a position such as that after 13a6 when he saw the possibility of it arising with his opponent's best play? I discussed these considerations with Mark Dvoretsky. At first I showed him 11a4 as if it is a solution to the position, but when I found a refinement and told him, he was not too impressed. The difference between the two kinds of advantage is not so great, and Mark thinks this kind of problem is not that relevant for trading or writing, and completely clear examples create a stronger impression. Actually, I disagree a little. I believe that clearly explained examples create the best impression, examples that give the core of a position and the reasons behind different claims, but everybody has their own opinions. I love Argard sometimes, especially old Argard. Old Argard really poured his soul into these books, and yeah, you can really tell, right? So, for the record, if anyone ever has this feeling like, oh, you know, Michael, you terrible person, you're showing Argard's work on a stream, you know, like, you didn't ask for his permission to do this, yada yada. I have vouched for Argard's books so many times in my videos, and I think me showing one chapter in a stream every now and then is only going to increase the chances of someone buying this book. So, honestly, anyone can just use their brain for like 5 seconds and realize that this is actually good for Argard, so ultimately, no need to worry about any of these things. But yeah, basically at this moment, queen b3 was played. This, of course, was the idea. Queen c8, rook f e1. This was also an important moment in the game. Had a consideration of a5 with d5 with initiative in the center. The question is whether this is too soon. It did not take me many seconds to decide that it was. Black has no convincing way to prevent this advance later, and meanwhile white can improve his position more than black can improve his. This special kind of consideration only exists when you have the advantage. So rook e1, h6, bishop h2. Yeah, this final point, right? This special kind of consideration only exists when you have the advantage. If you're worse statically, and your opponent has the risk of grinding you out, you need to play dynamically and make that d5 break and enter these complications before your opponent gets a full grip on the position. So that's the idea. And this is kind of where we see this idea, like g5 here was possibly the best choice, trying to mess things up. Like black is the one who's statically worse, needs to play dynamically, right? So maybe rook d8 is perhaps too slow and kind of like following the general trend of the game. And actually, this was actually my downfall in my match against Ramirez, if any of you have watched that, because basically, in kind of like the pressure of the game and also maybe the time control, I ended up not being able to play dynamically in instances where I needed to. Like there were moments where basically the trend was going in Ramirez's favor, and I needed to find this kind of dynamic play. And by the time I realized it was kind of too late and my position was already really bad. So I needed to do that. Whereas in my first game against Ramirez, basically I didn't need to play dynamically because my position was never in trouble. Like I kind of just held the static play, held the static play, held the static play. He blundered, I won, right? So playing statically is all well and good, but only when it suits the position, right? Like I basically played dynamically when I didn't play dynamically, which is maybe something that the problem in Blitz is that, you know, to be able to make the decision that you need to go for dynamic counterplay, it's really difficult under time control, obviously, right? So I'm not too afraid that, like, you know, I'm playing too statically or something. I think, like, you know, if I play like this classical tournament in Prague and Dortmund, I think I'm gonna have the time to be able to be like, okay, hold on a second, like I need to play more dynamically here. But okay, this is less strong now that white has completed development. The only move white might still want to play is bishop e2 to f1 when all the pieces are ideally placed. But it's not so important, especially now black is considering some counterplay of g5, g4. Logically, the right move for white to take. Right, so this is the point. Basically, regardless of whether g5 has come at the right time or not, thank you for the follow. I would say, yeah, what Agard is saying is exactly right, that when the opponent starts to enter some counterplay, even though you've had control over the last few moves, you've been like playing these like improving moves, this is the time when the calculation is really needed. Both players will have to calculate accurately, play the best moves, or the evaluation of the position can alter very quickly, right? What I personally find the most difficult is the change from feeling the right way intuitively and evaluating it by logic to then working with accuracy and calculation. I often mess up my position in exactly this kind of situation because I'm not playing with the right frame of mind, although my logic often proves correct and I maintain my playing level despite this obvious flaw in my thinking technique. Interesting. In this game, I made such a mistake, which I present to you as a pertinent example, one that should not be ignored just because I win the game all the same. See the Nataf game later on for true failure. A5. There is no reason now to hesitate in playing this move. I'm clearly better and no obvious way of improving the position. It is time to fight. Knight d5, d5. Hold on a sec. So, in this game I made such a mistake which I present to you. Okay, so we're going to see the mistake sooner or later. d5. Again, everything has to be just right. While this d5 move was not played blindfold, I did not see the need to calculate everything here, as black has only one move, and white's play follows very naturally. So bishop f5, knight d4. Knight c5. Bishop g6 was the alternative, a6 and the queenside falls apart, so therefore knight c5, queen a3, and so here it is, the miscalculation. Actually, this position should not be too... okay, wait, I haven't seen the answer, Okay, let's try and actually calculate here and find the right move here. Before I do, let's have a very quick look at chat. Loads of comments to catch up on, so apologies. But yeah, I was kind of in the full flow of that. I didn't want to really break it up. Yeah, bishop e6, let's go. No worries, I probably won't follow the chess training today. I'll just have you in the background while I draw some emails. Chess and Bridge Reward is beckoning. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, hope actually this excelling at chess calculation makes one of your considerations. I think it's a fantastic book. Felix says, one of my biggest problems is when I spotted a tactic and calculated deeply through, my head is just empty afterwards. Even if the tactics works and I want a piece, I'm just done. And that shows that you need these different ways of thinking, right? Like, you can't just be someone who can solve tactics. You can't play a game of chess just on solving tactics. You need to have this positional understanding. You need to have this intuition. You need to have some logic. You need to have technique, right? This is everything that Agard's saying. And there are books written dedicated to this kind of process. And this will improve your ability to do these things. Another amazing book in this same series as Excelling at Chess Calculation is this Excelling at Positional Play. Like, this is an absolutely fantastic book. And I remember as a junior, I read both of these books, Excelling at Chess Calculation and Excelling at Positional Play. And I remember coming out of it being like, oh, the Positional Play book I got a lot, and the Calculation book, I don't know what I learned. But, I mean, I'm learning a lot right now, right? I think it's just a matter of maturity and, like, chess strength. Like, I think back then, I just didn't have the strength to really appreciate a lot of what Agard is saying. But so far, this kind of like conversation of when to calculate really been nice to look at. D-Last, hey, I'm new here. What program are you using to study? So currently, I'm using ChessBase, and I'm looking at one of Argard's book that was transcribed to ChessBase format. Normally, I'm using Chessable as well, using Lichess as well. Okay, Frizz gives some answers. Thank you very much. Tricky finally back. Fantastic. Let's go, Tricky. So, hope you've had a very self-reflective break and you're ready to put some hard work in. And yeah, this Excellinger chess calculation book is fantastic. I hope you will study it as well. D-Last says, thanks. It seems like there's a lot of calculation lines. I was wondering what program. Yeah, ChessBase. Actually, I'm using an old ChessBase 12, but yeah, it's all the same. Yeah, the disparity in marketing between the Grandmaster Prep and Excellinger series is crazy, yeah. I mean, the thing is, during the Excellinger chess series, Argard was actually an IM at the time. He didn't make GM until after publishing the series and then playing some tournaments. So I guess, like, as an IM, writing the series, you're gonna get less, like, less exposure compared to when you're a GM. So, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, but this book is fantastic. Dorfman's thinking of statics and dynamics is really interesting, absolutely. Not to stir up drama, but this book is so much better than the Ramesh one. Exactly, right? Like, but I mean, ultimately, the Ramesh one, I would actually argue, is a bridge between the Grandmaster Prep book and this book. Like, this book is really delving into how to calculate and giving really nice examples. And, you know, this is the perfect calculation book in my eyes, right? But the Grandmaster Prep book is kind of that extreme opposite, where it's just a bunch of exercises to work on if you want to basically get to GM level, because ultimately, yeah, you can read about this as much as you want, but if you don't put in the actual training and practice of the calculation, you're not going to get there. So what I believe Ramesh's book is a kind of a balance. It's got some of the insights, some of the exercises. My problem is that some of the exercises, like the comments, are just not useful, right? I think the concept of the book is a really great one. This kind of like middle ground between these two books, but there are some flaws to it. And ultimately, you know, this is Ramesh's first book. Like, I'm not saying that it needs to be perfect, but what I was disappointed by was just his reaction, right? Like, he just can't take a single word of constructive criticism and will just have a full out tantrum and then just like enter some echo chamber where everyone tells him he's the best coach in the world, and then he feels happy again. It's like, I don't know, like if you want to become a better author or a better anything, I think it's really important to be able to take criticism and learn from it, right? But, you know, he's got one very famous example of Prague being absolutely beast at chess, and therefore he can flex all he wants. But, you know, I don't think that means he has, you know, no room for improvement. I think everyone has room for improvement, right? So, but yeah. Knight c5, Argard played queen e3 on a miscalculation. So let's actually try and calculate this. This is going to be different from the woodpecker method, but let's give this a shot. So, okay, so we understand the position pretty well. I mean, recently there was this whole a5, this d5 push. This changed the position very slightly, or quite significantly. Our bishop on f5 is a target as well. We've just thrown in this knight c5 with tempo on the queen. So in this position, what candidates does white have? In this position, I would always consider knight takes f5 just in case. Oh my god, does knight takes f5 work? In the sense that, like, if knight takes b3, knight takes e7? Definitely a line worth calculating. We'll come back to it. I mean, I literally looked at it just for the sake of looking at a capture, which is exactly what Frizz's advice was saying to me, right? Just calculate the forcing moves even if it looks ridiculous. So knight takes f5, surprising. You know, you've got these like pawn takes c6, knight takes c6, queen takes b7, probably not working, but you never know. Then of course, you know, we have like moving the queen. Are there any other in between moves? Probably not. So maybe here, like, what legal squares are there? There's queen a3, which we know is wrong, but we'll try not to think like that. Queen a3, queen b4, queen d1, queen a2, right? These are the only squares. I mean, you can give up the queen, probably bad idea, right? So, what to look at first? So I think knight takes f5 needs to be looked at first. This is very, very concrete. So currently the material is equal. Knight takes f5, knight takes b3. And we're now down a bishop for a queen. We can take on e7. We get a pawn back as well. Check. The king has to move somewhere. Let's just put the king on h8 for argument's sake. And then we take the queen on c8. So at this moment, we've won a bishop, pawn, and a queen for a queen. And then in this position, if they take back our knight on c8, we will be a pawn up. So therefore, after knight takes c8, black needs to play knight takes c1. And for anyone who, so actually I remember, again, this guy who commented on my YouTube video saying like, oh, you know, please draw arrows for beginners. Ultimately, in a chess game, in an over-the-board game, you can't draw arrows. And if you're struggling to keep up with my notation, then you need to find a way to improve your visualization and notation understanding. And one thing I can recommend for that is actually there's an app called Magnus Trainer, where there's some really good mini games for like practicing this like visualization of notation, but also even Lichess, you can practice like some notation drills and just get really fast at knowing the squares. It's a very useful skill. Just drill it and then you can follow these lines. So I think this is the better way to do it. So okay, knight takes f5, knight takes b3, knight e7, king h8, knight c8. So after knight takes c8, if black wants to keep a material lead, they need to play knight takes c1. So there, black will have a rook for a bishop and a pawn. And in that position, it's white's turn to move. So white can either try and rescue their knight, or they can take on c1. I don't know what looks more reasonable to look at first. Now I'm seeing actually the positioning of the black king might make a difference, because in that position, the only escape square that's safe is knight e7. And if I put the king on h8, then they have that square. But what if I put the king on f8, right? So let's go through that again. Knight takes f5, knight takes b3, knight takes e7 check, king f8, knight takes c8, knight takes c1. Here, white doesn't have the choice to escape with their knight. Without giving it up, of course. So maybe there white should take on c1. Black will play rook a takes c8 most likely. And white has still only won a bishop and a pawn for a rook. But aside from the material, what is that final position like? Oh, let me really try and visualize this final position. So, knight f5, knight b3, knight e7, king f8, knight c8, knight takes c1. Despite white having the bishop pair, and I feel like that light squared bishop is going to be strong. Oh, but at the same time, even though black's rooks are going to be strong, you've removed that e7 pawn. And that e7 pawn is crucial because now that d5 pawn has even higher chances of becoming a passer. Now, if black and white didn't have the knights on the board, I reckon I would prefer white in that position despite being material down, because I feel like those pawns would have a really good chance of going home. The fact that the knights are on the board, can the knights blockade the d pawn in a way? It's difficult to say. Really difficult to evaluate that final position. Would I go for it? Let me look one more time. I mean, of course, actually what I should do is take a break from this line and take a look at the alternatives, because if white has a good queen move here, then maybe it's just not worth like looking at all that. But what I would say is that final position looks interesting, really interesting. Like maybe white actually has a better position there. But okay, let's see this like alternative. So there's queen a3, queen a2, queen b4, queen d1. So if queen b4, I hit for knight. Now, black also has the bishop on f5 to deal with because black really doesn't want to give up that bishop pair. But queen b4 can be met with knight d3. And if you take on f5, I guess... Oh god, I hate this. Queen b4, knight d3. I need to calculate after knight takes f5 the possibility... Well, they can't take a rook because of knight takes e7 check, but they can take the queen on b4, which again goes into a mess. But knight d3, queen b4, knight takes f5. They could take queen f5 as well, but then white is quite happy there. Are they? Probably happy there. Because, yeah, if queen b4, knight d3, knight takes f5, queen takes f5, bishop takes d3, queen takes d3, rook takes e7, I think that's a pretty clean pawn. So queen b4, knight d3. Now, to be honest, like, I would already stop there and be like, wait, can I not just do queen a3 and just avoid all of the shenanigans, right? Queen a3. Queen a3 if knight d3. Then we can go knight takes f5. They have to respond queen takes f5. Then bishop takes d3, queen takes d3, and rook takes e7. But the difference here is that the c4 pawn is unguarded, right? The queen being on a3 unguards the c4 pawn, whereas the queen on b4 doesn't, right? So maybe this queen b4 is a finesse. So if we go queen b4, knight d3, bishop takes d3, sorry, no, queen b4, knight d3, knight takes f5, knight takes b4. So black is a queen for a bishop up. Then white takes the pawn e7. So white has a bishop and a pawn for a queen. Black, let's say, moves to king f8 again. And white takes on c8. In that position, white has gained a bishop, pawn, and a queen. And black has gained a queen. And in that position, black's best move is simply to recapture on c8. Rook takes c8. And in that position, white has won a pawn. So to me, without any further calculation, I quite like queen b4. I feel like unless we've missed something in our calculation, then in a real game, I'd probably recalculate and double check, because this is a really critical moment if I have the time. But I feel like queen b4, better than queen a3, less complicated due to that whole c4 pawn hanging at the end. I don't think this knight d3 option is working out for black, because I think white is a pawn up in that position, and the e7 pawn is very important. And this is much cleaner than the initial knight f5. So I'm going to put my hands up and say queen b4. I reckon queen b4. So let's see what chat is saying. Welcome Gloin to the stream. Arjun says, welcome Arjun to the stream. Just looked at my FIDE rating. I only lost 50 points instead of 80 in the FIDE Blitz. One of my Blitz tournaments wasn't published, not sure why. So happy. Amazing, Arjun. Fantastic. I would say there is the possibility that it gets published for next month. I had this with the Major Open, and at first I was really happy about my Major Open being published 1 month later, because basically all of my opponents were underrated and they all gained like 100, 200 points that month. But annoyingly, even though the Major Open got published next month, they used the previous month's ratings to calculate it, which is just bullshit. So that was really annoying. But yeah. I was watching it live, your first game against Ramirez, and I was always screaming like, you can win a piece, yeah, and I managed to win it, yeah. By the way, the students have Sarah, as in who I need to send the course to. It is not, by the way, the video of improving your tactics overnight just passed 1k views. I didn't even know. That's awesome. I think the last time I checked it was like at 600, so that's pretty cool. Frizz, your advice will be immortalized in chess internet history. So Sarah says he's back, getting a good tournament, kinda. Playing Davi. I don't know who Davi is. Which student, Mike? Why are you guys so obsessed? Like, just chill, I'm playing a 2000 now next game. I threw my afternoon game. Trying Grunfeld. That's wild. Play Dutch and relax. Nah. Yeah, different styles. In Blitz, I played knight takes f5 in a heartbeat. Bishop pair, moving black's most active piece. Okay, more stuff about not related to the position. Queen a3, does that not just win a pawn? Queen a3, b6 is your main line, Frizz. Interesting. My main line was for sure was knight d3. b6 feels like such an ugly move. I wouldn't want to play it. Like b6, it just drops c6. Like Frizz, if queen a3 c6, b6, why not just knight takes c6? Am I missing something here? Knight takes c6 is just the game winner. And this is why long variation, wrong variation as well. Like if you just tunnel vision this b6, I mean, you may miss this like knight takes c6, like right at the start. Bowser V's is nice, yes. It is also not Zach Welling. Guys, chill. Run, I'm catching up to you in rapid. I mean, good luck, Sapsara, good luck. I mean, every 50 points is harder than the last. Like, you know, it gets tough, What is the stupidest chess rule in your opinion, Michael? Good question. The stupidest chess rule is the fact that I have won a game against a national master and beaten a 2000 rated player, and the games are not published on the ECF rating because the ECF is just a completely not lazy organization, but for God's sake, like just it's been 6 months and I still haven't got my rating. I've sent like 6 emails about like fixing it, and they keep making new excuses why they can't fix it. It's like at this point I'm gonna be like emailing for the next year to try and get my 15 rating points that I deserve or whatever. Just okay, that's not really a chess rule, that's just the ECF being garbage. Stupid chess rule. Probably some of these technical rules. Which one is really stupid? I mean, I feel like the rules of chess are pretty good, to be honest. There are no rules that jump out at me as like, oh, that's really annoying, I wish that rule didn't exist. I feel like most of the rules make perfect sense, and like as a game, like I think it's really balanced, I think it's really good. So, yeah. I should sleep, says Frizz. Yeah, I should also sleep, and I should also pack. I've got like 3 weeks worth of travel, and I haven't even started. So yeah, I need to do that soon. But we're gonna finish this game, of course. What are you doing currently? Welcome Ben to the stream. This is a game from Argard, and this is from his calculation book, Excelling at Chess Calculation. And we're basically trying to understand. Let's see if Queen B4 is the move, guys. Let's see if Queen B4 is the move. Correct, was Queen B4. Ah, oh, we have reached the Grandmaster stage of our chess calculation. This is wild. Let's go. Let's see if my calculation was on point. Let's see if... Oh, okay. Actually, no. It wasn't on point at all. There were so many alternatives that we didn't even consider. This knight a6, this knight fe4. That's actually really funny. We don't even get to know how knight takes f5 was. So before we have a look at what Argard's explanation was, let's actually just take a look at... okay, wait. Okay, I need to mess around with some accounts and whatnot. Yeah, let's have a... Oh wait, we've even got a study of excelling at chess calculation. Hold on a sec. Yeah. Okay. Where am I? Back to chess space for now. Alright, so let's have a look at this. And we want a new chapter. No. I think sometimes when... 2 possible ways to meet this... yeah, sometimes you can't... Okay, you know what? Can I do it like this? Let me see if this will work. Sometimes you can import into analysis board. Is there no way I can do this? Because if I turn on the engine on my chess face, this whole thing is literally gonna crash. Someone with a brain work this out for me. Copy position. I'm so smart. I'm just gassing myself up, guys. Allow it. I always feel like whenever you can problem solve in life, that deserves like proper respect. Okay, so we can take a look at this position. Let's have a look. I'm not blocking the board, am I? So okay, let's have a look. So in this position, oh, queen. Wait, we need a new position with the queen on b3 with white to play, right? And we'll look from black's perspective. Oh wow, and that's crazy. That's crazy. That like White's move here is Queen A3, which is actually Argod's move, which he played. Even though he's suggesting from his own analysis that Queen B4 is better. But it's really cool that we got to Queen B4. Now, I want to find out, like, was my calculation correct in all of these lines? So let's have a look. So this knight takes f5, I evaluated it as interesting, right? I said knight takes f5, knight takes b3, knight takes e7, king f8 was best, because then we control the escape square of the knight, which is exactly what the engine says. Knight takes c8, knight takes c1, and in this position, because there's no escape from the knight, I felt the best move was rook takes c1, rook takes c8, and I just gave this as interesting. I couldn't evaluate whether giving up this, winning this pawn and making this like more potentially passed would be worth it. I thought that if the knights were off the board, this would be better for white. So let's actually check that as well. Let's see if this is actually a better position for white. Okay, maybe concretely speaking, there might be some details, but okay, it's about the same. It's about the same. I felt without the knights it might be stronger for white, where this pass pawn might be more useful, and then it's harder to blockade the passer, and with this bishop pair, it might be more annoying. But I just gave it as interesting, right? And I think I did a really good thing where I stopped my calculation there, didn't bother with calculating it any further, and just said, okay, I need to look at my alternatives, right? And this was where I started to look at this difference between these two moves. And queen b3, I felt like on knight d3, what was my line again? Yeah, I wanted to play knight takes f5. Okay, and this was the correct line. And yeah, knight takes b4 is critical here, right? Because this is just simply losing a pawn. At least this was what I was looking at, just rook takes e7. Okay, it's maybe not best move, but it's good enough, right? So in this position after queen b4, knight d3, here knight takes f5 and knight takes b4 was my line, and knight e7, and I basically said that we're just winning a pawn here. We're just winning a pawn because we won e7, and this is great, right? Whereas in the starting position, if we play queen a3, the difference is that on knight d3, knight takes f5. This position here is not as clear to me with rook takes e7 because of queen c4. So okay, actually I missed the point here. Apparently a6 is already just good enough. Fair enough. So actually maybe queen a3 is bad for other reasons, although engine even says that queen a3 is better. So we'll see what Argard has to say. But I'm at least proud of like at least evaluating that this line with queen takes c4 is only plus 1.0. Whereas compared to this line where it's plus 2, or this line that is also plus 2, I think we made the right call with queen b4 and also avoided these unnecessary complications with knight takes f5. So happy with my calculation, although, okay, I could have been more thorough after queen b4 and had a look at these alternatives, right? This knight a6 I think was one, and knight e4 was one. But the fact that engine even says knight d3 is best, I think like my intuition of understanding what black's best try was probably right, but maybe I should have spent more time calculating these alternatives as well. But okay, that was cool. So let's have a look at what Argard has to say. Let's have a look at chat as well. Yeah, they aren't underfunded. Yeah, I mean, like, ECF need to actually do something good with their money. Like, I have no idea where, like the UK just like invested a bunch of money into the ECF, and just nothing happens, nothing changes. It's just like, it's so clapped. I don't even know how else to describe it. Wasn't there a rule that says if a GM offers a draw even in a losing position, you have to accept it by respect? That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Yeah, I haven't even heard of that. That's just the dumbest thing. Yeah, that's a terrible rule. Whoever said that. Steven says, I should be sleeping now, but here I am. Welcome, Steven, to the stream. You doing this in Prague as well? I will probably just be doing some woodpecker method. I mean, basically this chapter of Argard. I was actually thinking, Stephen, we can actually look at this by ourselves. We would just look at this like as training like in general. But in terms of like my streaming, I would just do like 45 minutes of woodpecker, stay as sharp as I am, and yeah, just keep it simple. Because yeah, if I put lots of like time and energy into like talking and explaining, like this will probably be too much. But maybe we can train this. I mean, this is excelling at chess calculation. It's a little bit easier to grasp, and oh, the exercises are so nice. And like this is just Argard explaining exactly his thought process of when he's calculating, what he's calculating, what's going wrong, what's going well. I mean, this chapter 3, when to calculate, is just fantastic, right? Like, maybe it's a lot of stuff that we know already, but still, the refresher and like the exercise is just really worth doing. So I hope you're up for it. I hope you're up for the training. I mean, I certainly am. I mean, I think my plan for Prague is like I want to train in the mornings, like have a good night's rest, do my stream with Woodpecker, do some training, go to the game. Like, obviously not exhaust ourselves, but like go to the game like feeling like really energized and seeing a lot. And then after the game we relax, like no chess in the evening. Like maybe we input the game if it's not already inputted somewhere. But we don't do any chess in the evenings. We chill, we go explore the city, hang out with Eric and everyone else, and relax. And then okay, next morning, back to the grind, work hard again, do our prep, do our training, get in the zone. So yeah, that's the situation. I mean, Stephen, like this is the cool thing, right? I feel like I don't know if you saw like this recent video of mine, but it's actually thanks to one of the viewers here, Frizz, who basically watched my streams for like I don't know, two months straight and watched me calculate in really really poor fashion, and basically just corrected my calculation. And I feel like now when I see like new positions and dynamic positions positions that we trained in the past, where I mean it was clear that you're always like definitely like one step ahead of me, I think, in terms of like your tactical calculation ability. But I feel like I had the skills, I just wasn't applying myself. And I think you're a prime example of you having even greater skills and not applying it in the right way. So I think like, you know, after this trip, like we'll discuss all of the points that Frizz made for me, and we'll try some examples and see if like you can also correct your calculation. I think it'll be really fascinating, really interesting. You didn't know Eric will be there? Yeah, Eric's gonna be there. Eric's going with a friend. I actually don't know much about the friend, but they've got a 2-bed Airbnb as well. And actually, I think they're gonna be living pretty close to us. So yeah, it's gonna be good vibes. Absolutely good vibes. Yeah. You got the FEN as well, Frizz. Congrats on the good life ability of finding the FEN. Nice stuff. But yeah, let's find out what Argard has to say. Yeah, 1700 online, but way hard 1700 in real life. Yeah, bro, like I'm 2500 online and just trying to break 2000 in real. So yeah, that's a big jump, but don't discount the online rating. I mean, online rating is even more of a correct evaluation of your strength. Of course, you know, the calibration is different, but ultimately online you get a lot more sample games, right? Like you get a lot more experience playing, so it's just as much of a metric of your strength as in person chess, if not more. So yeah, don't discredit this online chess. It's really legit, I feel. Okay, glad you're up for it, Stephen. That's awesome. Yeah, I honestly, I'm buzzing to play, and I'm buzzing to be able to, you know, calculate and you know, just play, man. It's gonna be good. I'll play Prague next year. Honestly, Sapsara, you need to start playing some international tournaments. I think it's gonna be the next good step. Yeah, more international tournaments the better. Like, international vibes, always good. But yeah, let's understand this. So, Queen b4. Actually, Argard dismisses the move due to knight a6. I did not like the look of this, but I had gone as far as queen takes e7. It would have been quite obvious that I was just being silly. White has an extra pawn to d6 and enjoy life, having a clear advantage as well. So why would Argard be afraid of this? Is he afraid of his queen getting trapped somehow? But the thing is, you've got two retreats, right? You've got one to a3 and you've got one to e3. So black can't play both bishop f8 and rook e8 at the same time. Bishop f8 also blunders the piece, which I missed. But yeah, it feels like that's a nice pawn to take if you can take it. Which is also why I think actually one of Argard's flaws as a player, at least at the time of maybe writing this book, was that he was a predominantly intuitive player. And he also was kind of lazy with his calculation. Like he's got this amazing book called Thinking Inside of a Box, where it's all about like chess psychology and his own chess journey. And he talks about this a lot, how like, you know, the fact of his strength being this intuition ended up actually, you know, being a weakness in some ways because he was like overusing it and this kind of stuff. So yeah, really interesting stuff. But yeah, this whole line was what we looked at. And yeah, this queen f5, bishop d3, queen d3. Oh, just takes on b7. I mean, rook takes e7 felt like the most simple way to play for me. Like, why? Queen b7 just feels somewhat riskier to me. But apparently this isn't working, and this wins even more. Fair enough, maybe this is objectively even stronger, but okay, we saw that my move was fine. But yeah, there's knight b4, knight e7. Aha, and d6 here. I mean, yeah, I didn't even calculate further, because we're already a pawn up. But maybe actually, yeah, we're only temporarily a pawn up, right? Like, this d pawn is actually under a lot of pressure. So maybe actually I could calculate deeper and not just stop at that material evaluation and actually say, okay, what's actually going on in the position? Hey, my pawn is actually going to be lost, so you need to find d6 actually. And then we get this case of like the knight's blockading. But it looks like white hangs on to the pawn and therefore has like a nice advantage. A nice knight fe4, knight f5, queen f5, knight e4, bishop f3, cd5, cd5, knight f6, queen b7, knight d5, bishop g4, bishop c8. And black loses the exchange. Yeah, I didn't catch any of that. I didn't catch any of that. So knight f5, queen f5. Takes. Knight f6. I'm really bad at keeping track when I'm not just like trying to calculate myself. Like, just to flick through these lines kind of passively is really difficult. So hold on a sec. Knight fe4 has been played. Trade pieces. Knight e4. Trade another set of pieces. Bishop f3. Is the line I prepared in the game only here? There's the big difference. Black does not have knight d2 with counterplay. I see. So this is actually why queen b4 is more important than queen a3. And here there would be no comparison, no compensation. Apparently you lose the exchange. And this is a simple matter of comparison. Yeah. Okay, so when I said that, you know, I got queen b4 and like I've reached this GM level of calculation, like not at all, right? Like I didn't even consider like most of the candidate responses. I didn't see deep enough. I didn't even get to this comparison, right? So this is like much deeper. But okay, in fairness, you know, I'm not playing the game. Like I'd obviously look deeper if it was a game as well. But yeah, let's have a look. So knight e4 is the line, and there's knight takes e4, knight takes e4, queen e3. It turns out white can still put black under a lot of pressure, and they have no way out of getting out of this alive. And let's actually see, is this backed up by why Stockfish prefers this queen b4 as well. So on queen a3, knight e4, it was knight takes, and here, yeah, queen e3, Argard's move actually works out. And this apparently, I guess, is some compensation here of knight d2. But apparently not. Apparently bishop g4 is a move. I guess Argard must have missed this in his analysis. Oh, and that's a very cute move in the sense that we control v-squares, and therefore we can bring this bishop in, and maybe the rook is struggling a bit. Man, chess is hard. But yeah, I think so far the big things we can learn about like the timing of the calculation. Firstly, is like as soon as you get out of prep, time to calculate. And as soon as you feel like you've been improving your static position logically and statically, and as soon as you see either you've improved your position to the max and you need to play dynamically, this is going to be a good point to calculate, or your opponent starts to initiate some dynamic counterplay of their own, then that's also a point where you need to calculate. So I think that's like the biggest take home so far. But okay, queen e3, bishop g6. An accurate move. To be honest, like I need to start packing. I don't think I'm gonna head into these complications too much. But what I can say is that, you know, even this position that, you know, is supposedly, you know, some refuted opening, not easy for white to play at all, right? Like this kind of style, I think actually style will make a bigger difference than the objective position. But definitely, you know, if you want to make it to GM or something, then being able to play these kind of positions with the white pieces is going to be essential, because a lot of these like slight advantage openings against openings that are somewhat dubious, you need to be able to play these positions where it's not so clear how to play, and you need to have a good understanding of prophylaxis. You need to understand your opponent's plans. You need to understand your own plans. Not easy to play at all. Easier to play for black, in my opinion. But objectively, yeah, probably this is the way. Like, to me, it's very difficult for me to understand like who's better in this position. Like, really difficult. But okay, looks like in the end, yeah, white manages to get through the messiness. But let's have a read of what Argard has to say. I think that's going to be more instructive than the actual positions itself. So let's have a look. So yeah, such a problem cannot be solved through calculation alone. It requires a different kind of positional depth and understanding. Right, so this is talking about the timing of the calculation just after the opening. This is why many young people often collapse right after the opening. They do not know how to organize their pieces themselves. In this way, okay, I need to make a note. Okay, yeah. They do not know how to organize their pieces themselves. In this way, they are like computers who see all tactics but cannot easily evaluate long-term factors. Once the maneuvering after the opening is completed, there comes a moment where one player is better prepared for a confrontation between two armies and therefore should seek it without hesitation. At this moment, calculation is absolutely necessary. Is an absolute necessity. This is what I was saying about, having this great static position. You've improved your position to the max. Time for dynamic play. So logic and general assumptions can only take you so far. This is what some theoreticians choose to call the critical moment. Yeah. In the following game, white managed to solve the positional problems in the opening better than black, but later, when it was time to calculate, he made some inaccuracies, which brought the win into danger and it got messy. Right. So, after the game, he says, in my books, I have a tendency to write what I think, what I believe in, as if it was the absolute truth. This is a conscious choice of style rather than arrogance. I dislike writers who constantly apologize for having a point of view and start every original idea they have with a maybe. I'd rather trust that the reader is intelligent and able to make up their own mind than present my views as if I cannot even take them seriously myself. For the record, if Steven is still watching the stream, I'm exactly the same when it comes to writings. I remember when we were discussing like the see-through Venom and we were having this kind of like debate of like, writing styles of like, am I being too forceful with a certain way of like being like, this is the way it is or something like this. I kind of have the same mentality that I feel like that kind of confidence in writing, it almost rolls nicer when reading. Like I really like reading like Argard's work like this. I'm not, and I agree. Like I think it's like you take what is right and what makes sense to you, and you stay critical. And maybe in politics it's going to be slightly different when with the writing, but with chess writing I feel like I can really sympathize with this way of thinking. As my point of view is not my identity, I have no problem with other people disagreeing with me, just as I have no problem disagreeing with others and still feeling great respect for them and their achievements. This little introduction to the next game is included because I will now refer to a personal discussion with the English Grandmaster Luke McShane about one of his games, as McShane has a different view to mine, and as the game is a very nice example of what I've described above. I'll trust the reader to make up his own mind and not take sides. Besides, when we play, no one is on our side, so why should we take sides in discussions about how chess is best played? And then we enter Nielsen McShane. But I need to pack, otherwise there will be no Prague and Dortmund tomorrow. So I think I'm going to call it a day. Steven's still here listening, that's cool. Let me catch up on the rest. Yeah, big ifs of international tournaments. Yeah, if a tournament goes horribly, then of course, then it's a real bummer. That is definitely true. Fingers crossed though. This one will go better. I think environment plays a lot as well. I mean, firstly, we're not playing in the all India, Mongolian, Kazakhstan Open, so that obviously has its advantages. I also think that when you were playing in Parachin, like you had like a bunch of new people to show around Parachin, and although I'm sure like the vibes were good, it ultimately is like maybe a small distraction to the chess, or like even just in your headspace, right? Like you can't just like completely just focus on the game. You need to think about other things, right? So I think all of these factors like make it harder. And okay, rustiness as well. So okay, I mean you've played one tournament now, you're a bit warmed up, you're kind of back in the zone a little bit, and okay, we'll train hard in Prague. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be good. Like I really don't have too many doubts. So yeah, Fritz says, I was doing good progress in C3 Venom, came across a fantastic game of Mikhail Tal playing a minority attack against QGD Exchange and making his own tactical twist to it. Interesting. Please send that to me, Fritz. I actually know of a minority attack game where Mikhail Tal loses to Yasser Seirawan. Yasser Seirawan is a fantastic video on YouTube. You can just look it up. Like Yasser Seirawan, Mikhail Tal game, and Yasser Seirawan gives a lecture on it. And it's crazy how he makes Mikhail Tal look like a beginner. Like genuinely makes him look like a beginner. It's an incredible game. As soon as I joined, yeah, we'll just make some concluding thoughts. Sorry, Emra. I haven't seen you here on the stream though, so welcome. We've actually got a bunch of newcomers. I think recently, like I've been putting some effort into YouTube, so it's cool. But yeah, generally looking forward to it anyway. Yeah, should be good. Didn't McShane draw 1999? He did. But did you see how? It was so interesting because I obviously, when you see a 2600 draw in 1900, you think why? I looked at the game. Luke McShane accidentally made a free-fold repetition in time trouble. Wild. At first I thought he just agreed to draw in like a better position for black. And I was thinking like, that's really weird, right? Like why would he agree to draw in a position where he's better and like, it's still very dynamic, like he would trust himself, but he accidentally free folded. And like when I looked at the position, how it was an accidental free fold, I completely understand why. Like I had to look at it several times to appreciate that, wait, this is actually a free fold. So yeah, really crazy. I recommended it in the course. Yeah, I'm glad I did that because actually, I mean, I had some stick for it, like being like, you should only recommend stuff within Chessable, don't recommend external stuff. But I was just like, come on, allow it. Like it's all right. So yeah. And that's actually how you got to the game. That's very cool. Yeah, how did he do against Michael Adams? Actually, I saw that he was paired, but I didn't see how he got on. But yeah, guys, as much fun as it is to talk about chess, I could do this all night. I do need to pack for tomorrow and for the next 3 weeks, so I am going to call it a day there. But thank you guys all for tuning in, and best of luck for everyone playing in the British. Best of luck to everyone playing in Prague. Best of luck to my friend Yassine, who is playing in a closed IM tournament for the very first time, and probably has the biggest tournament of his life up ahead. So yeah, good luck to everyone. He lost. Okay, rough. Yeah, Callum Salmons has been a strong player for some time. Like, definitely an underrated 1900. Like, he did really well in the Major Open last year. Yeah, strong player. Okay, see you guys around. Yes, probably tomorrow will just be like some kind of vloggy stream because I'll be mostly traveling. But then after that, I'll get back to the woodpecker, try and grind in the morning. So, yes. Okay, on that note, guys, see you around. Adios.